All right, that sounds great. Well, we will begin the Public Utilities Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 29th, 2025, and we will call the meeting to order.
Higgins?
Roll call, please.
Here. Matt?
Here.
O'Day?
Here.
England?
Here. Everybody please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Hi, good morning.
To
This
the
is
republic
Clark
for which
speaking.
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Clark.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we go to the consent calendar, I'd like to see if I could request item C to be pulled for discussion.
Okay.
And move to just after public forum.
All right, we will pull item C under the consent calendar, and we'll place that just after public forum. Any other modifications to the agenda before we approve it? Hearing, I'm sorry, to the consent calendar. Yeah. Any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Do we do a roll call for this? I can't
I'd like to make a motion for the change.
remember. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the
May approve the consent calendar, correct?
what's that? I'm sorry.
Now we approve the consent calendar.
Okay.
With the removal.
Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And then that'll be a roll call vote.
All right, hearing none, we'll go to a roll call vote, please.
Higgins?
Aye.
Matt?
Yes.
O'Day?
Yes.
England?
Yes. Okay, we'll move into public forum. Time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the commission. Time limits may be imposed. Is there anybody here that would like to speak as part of public forum? Okay. Hearing none, we will then move on to item C that was pulled from the consent calendar. Commissioner Chapman.
Yes, so I actually just had a few questions. I wanted to find out first and foremost who drafted the agreement. Somebody could tell me that. That would be great.
Wolf Creek Solar drafted the agreement.
And my concern was, I can tell, it shows. I want to know if we've had this staff, if we've had our city attorney and or any consultant review this contract.
No legal review on this contract.
And so that would be my recommendation before approving and signing this solar project. I know we've agreed in the past to move forward with it, but I was concerned with several of the comments made in the contract, and I'd like to make sure that BPU's risks are mitigated through the agreement. So that would be my recommendation, at least to have the city attorney review the contract and or one of our consultants before it comes back to us next month.
If possible, could you send me over a highlighted version of what your
I will.
concerns are? Thank you.
Absolutely love to.
Okay, any other discussion on that item? Okay, I don't think we need to take any formal action on that, but thanks, Trent.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, we will then move on to number 7, block metrics presentation and request for extension. And I believe we'll begin with, Danny, would you like to speak?
I can start, thank you. So Block Metrics is here, Roe, and then Clark is on the phone. They provided the letter requesting the extension, and I will turn it over to either Roe or Clark, whoever would like to start.
Sure. Clark, would you like to give an intro?
No, just because I'm on the phone, Ro, it's probably easier for you to start. I can certainly add to your opening.
Certainly. Thank you all for being here today. Block Metrics has made substantial progress on the design development of this particular project. We've recently encountered a number of supply chain challenges. I'm sure BPU's probably experienced similar things, primarily some of the longer lead time items, switchgear, transformers have nearly doubled in lead time. So we wanted to request an extension that allows us the flexibility so that we're not right up against a very compressed deadline that and the main goal here is, we do anticipate that we'll be able to energize well before this proposed extension deadline. However, we don't want to have to come back in front of you again and ask for another extension. So the purpose of the 6-month extension is to give us that buffer so that we can meet our obligations. From an approval perspective, we have the civil approved. Mechanical and electrical designs are nearly complete and will be submitted here within the next couple weeks for approval. And we anticipate that we'll be able to have all the approvals in place here within the next 4 to 6 weeks for the project. Anything to add, Clark?
Yeah, you're a little faint, Ro.
Okay.
As far as what I can tell.
Okay.
Right, I got the gist of it.
Great. Excellent. Some of the supply chain issues that we're seeing are analogous to what we experienced with COVID. It certainly has that feel to it early on, so it's certainly available for any additional questions on where we're at with the project, the current status. But we're anxious to get going. Our investors are anxious to get this project energized, and we're doing everything we can to accelerate timelines where we can.
Can I just add something to that, Ro?
Certainly.
Yeah, just in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, they announced the cancellation of 42,000 megawatts in projects in the United States due to these tariffs, just because of the uncertainty around trade with China and the tariffs that are really wreaking havoc on. So when I think your analogy to COVID is very appropriate, but I think in some respects this should be less in terms of duration. Hopefully that this is resolved in the next coming months, but it has obviously caused a problem which is systemic to the industry.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add?
No, it's available for questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you for that. Just open that up to commissioners with any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a few. You mentioned extension. Extension of what?
The proposed energization timeline of 15 megawatts by September 30th, so a 6-month extension from that date.
Okay, because you don't have an executed contract at all.
Correct.
And my next question is, why was that never executed?
We went through a few design revisions in the project to refine the mechanical and electrical and the airflow of the building. So we wanted to nail that down before we could commit to a timeline.
But wouldn't that be with your agreement and your construction and all of that with the city? Why wasn't it the contract executed with us?
We wanted to make sure that we had line of sight to make sure that we can fulfill our requirements from a timeline perspective before we made that commitment.
Okay. I'll move on if anyone else has anything.
If there's any procedural matters that need to be addressed during this call, certainly we can address those. So if there is something that was missed in regard to the contract or otherwise, we can take an opportunity to memorialize that and remedy if there's anything that's outstanding.
Okay. I do have more than Trent, you gave us yesterday construction that needed to be done. Can you explain some of that? Who would be doing that work and where we're at?
Sure. So as of today, we're working with them to finalize the final extension of the primary wiring of the site. So as the site, as Ro explained, has changed several different times as far as the configuration of the site. When BP originally built that line for BCD, we built it to the lot corner where we terminated it there and left it for the project to mature to understand. Originally, this was going to be 2 different lots on the original project. It got shrunk down to one lot, so we really got to that first property corner, and the rest of the development was gonna happen after final designs were made. We have approximately $250,000 left of construction to put in the rest of the feeders and the underground wires to their transformers. They're gonna do a contract with Brainerd Public Utilities for time and material for terminating and installing that wire. So those are the parts that are left. The general service to the building has not been established yet either. There's approximately $25,000 worth of work also on that project to bring the general service. The two different services would be, you have your one interruptible service, which would be your crypto loads. So when they get into the load programs, they can be curtailed through MISO. And then the general service would be your normal HVAC stuff along those natures that you wouldn't want to shut off during a curtailment. But that's kind of, that's your question.
Okay, so 275,000 left in construction.
Approximately, yes.
To me, this is kind of concerning, and I've heard the excuse of tariffs. Well, that's only happened in the last month. You know, and you're saying supply chain issues. I mean, this has been going on now for over a year. And, you know, we've lost the opportunity to make quite a bit of money. And every day is costing us. And I think there's frustration from Brainerd Public Utilities, and I think there's also frustration from the city side as far as how the sale of this lot, constructions of buildings, all of this has taken so long. You know, we had another purchaser with just for crypto that has gone pretty smooth. We've been making quite a bit of money. So our opportunity to make money has been delayed here significantly. And to be honest, speaking for myself, I'm pretty tired of it. We've had a couple of other things that have happened in here where, you know, people didn't do what they said they were gonna do. And one was at the dam with a generator that was gonna be put in, and we ended up canceling that. So I'm not really sure, I'm not comfortable with, you know, approving a contract today. I think that we as a commission need to meet with the city and decide really what we want to do. I'm frustrated, and if we are to go forward, I mean, I would want this $275,000 put in escrow, plus an additional amount of money. And if you're not going by the time this extension is, and I'm not even willing to do a 6-month extension, maybe 4 from the next meeting. And then if you don't meet that, I think there should be a daily penalty as to what we should be making in revenue. That's kind of how I feel.
Given your comments, is it appropriate and acceptable to you for us to change the design to have the open, to have the air-cooled towers in the environment outside?
That wouldn't be up to this commission. That would be up to the city. And James?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be up to
So what's happened? So what's happened, sir, is the city has said we're going to put certain constraints on this situation, and the BPU says, well, we need to pull down this amount of power, and the city says, no. You have to have these towers in a environment that is enclosed. That is rarely done. And so, well, it's been permitted for AI, or pardon me, for crypto. There's constraints the city's put on this. And we've made and invested countless hours and time and energy and hired outside consultants and experts in airflow and thermodynamics to make this work so that the city and the community and everybody's happy, and that there's virtually no sound coming from this. And that has caused, and Ro can speak to this, he's been the one on point with the engineers and the thermodynamic people, but this has not been the most conducive to implementing a smooth path to construction. So I think you have to take both sides in terms of what the city council wants and what BPU wants in consideration. It's not been, we're just sitting on our hands and, you know, waiting, and we didn't do this or we didn't do that. I think we've done everything that we've said we've committed to doing, and there are some challenges with regard to the design due to sound ordinances that have been implemented. And without those, I mean, let's just say, and Ro, you may comment on this, but yeah, I hired a guy named Mike Dorn. Mike Dorn is one of the most well-respected construction managers in the country. He's 25 years running Skanska. I did that because we need to make sure this is right for the city. I also developed a whole mentorship program for city children in the municipality as part of our learning finance, educating on crypto, and creating a mentorship program for children. I just launched this as part of my Swanson Calderon Foundation. You can look it up, swansonCalderonFoundation.org. So there's a whole lot of other stuff that's going to add value to the city, to the municipality, that we're making our best efforts to have everybody happy. So those are extenuating circumstances, understandably. The tariffs certainly do not help. And the price of transformers and everything else has increased. It's caused supply chain to literally stop. And so we're dealing with all of these things. I wanted this thing to go 6 months ago, but it has been challenging. It has not been because we've just been sitting on our hands and not moving forward and investing where the resources need to be made. I mean, these guys are working very hard with high tech and with everybody else on staff to make this happen. So that I just thought that needed to be spoken. So I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Yeah, we certainly understand the frustration on the timelines. We were relatively new into the mix on this particular project, starting in late August, early September, is when we really came into the mix for this project. So we're working as quickly as we can. And while we are empathetic about what's happened in the past, we certainly don't want to be penalized for actions or inactions that occurred before we even had visibility into this project.
Commissioner Higgins?
Trent, when did this start?
Well, the original line was constructed fall of 21 into the winter of 22 through the BCD contract.
So this has been going on for 4 years?
Correct.
I agree with everything that Mark said. We're losing a lot of money. I've only been here 3 months. I've been on the finance committee and looking at data and numbers from a business standpoint, which I don't have any other lens but a business standpoint. We've got somebody in town that will take the power and use it, and like has been said, it's been pretty smooth and seamless with them. I understand, Ro, that you guys took this over from a different company, but I have an experience that I want to share with the commission. You know, I stored electric motors and gearboxes from the Mesabi Metallics iron ore range project that our state put $500 million into, that's been going on for 12 years. And I'm hearing the same exact stuff I heard, because I had skin in the game. We stored electric motors and gearboxes in our building for 9 years. And we struggled getting our money. We had to spend money on lawyers. We had to almost evict them. We had to almost take the equipment, and it just went on and on. And at the last second, they would get me paid, and they would get a year extension. And they'd get me paid, and they'd get a year extension. Those motors sat in that building for 8 years. And last winter, they came up against another deadline, and they decided to haul them up there. And they literally put $10 million worth of electric motors and gearboxes out in the weather, up at the Mesabi Iron Range, and nothing's happened. They have not produced 1 ounce of iron ore out of that project in the 15 years that it's been going on. So, I mean, Ro, you're telling me you don't even have transformers and equipment ordered right now? Is that what I'm hearing? It's not even
Correct.
ordered.
Correct. Our
So
lead-
you think you can have it in 9 months?
Yes.
Cause in my experience, with everything switchgear and transformers and everything that I'm buying, I mean, I'm hearing a year to 18 months out.
Our lead time was 12 weeks for switchgear and transformers, and that extended to about 24 weeks.
But, I mean, I don't feel like you can guarantee that. With everything you're saying, if you're gonna use COVID era timelines and you're gonna use an excuse of this trade war and tariffs and everything, you don't know. I mean, if you had that equipment sitting on the ground right now in Brainerd, I think you'd struggle to start using this power when you're saying you're gonna use it even with the 6-month extension. You got a lot of work to do. And I don't,
Does the other customer have the transformers?
that's not what I'm talking about. I think they have capacity with what they have.
I think they have capacity, they can use another 5 before they would have to do a lot of additional work.
And is this the mining operation down the street, the 22 megawatts?
Yes.
So these are the guys that didn't deliver on their promises, that didn't deliver the foundation for the YMCA. These are the guys that the city council said, broke their promises. These are the guys.
Excuse me, these are the guys that are spending money on their BPU bill every month. That's who these guys are. Well, I don't care what they said or what they didn't say.
But if we didn't abide by the city council's wishes, we could have taken all the shortcuts and done all of this in an extraordinarily fast manner, because we wouldn't need to have recognized any of the sound ordinances. They're doing air-cooled units, as I understand. Like, that's much easier to do. If we could have changed that and said, well, we could do air-cooled. It was not possible on our property. Just not possible. They would not allow it. And that's the simple thing. You can bring in containers, run a wire, and get going. We're talking about building a building and enclosures that protect for sound. And this is being because of the design and the specifications of the designated covenants within that particular permit. It's not. It's kind of comparing apples and oranges.
There's no way I can vote yes on this, and I agree with Mark, there needs to be a pretty serious conversation with the city on this extension. And then the other thing I was gonna say, and then I won't say anything else because I get interrupted in the middle of talking, is there's no contract in place. You don't even have a contract. There's nothing signed. In my world, in the business world, we're not even having this conversation until something's signed. So for me, it's an absolute waste of time for this commission to even be discussing an extension when there's no signed contract. What are we extending? And that's all I got. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
James, can you explain where the EDA is and the city, where exactly?
So I handed out a letter here as to high-tech construction, something they had asked for. So construction plans have been submitted to the city for building permit, contingent upon a number of items here. So they're looking at doing a phased building approach. Again, as Ro had mentioned, mechanical, electrical are kind of finalizing, but the foundation portion is ready. So prior to the foundation phased building permit, so first, the permit fee would need to be paid, proof of title transfer to Block Metrics or a subsidiary, executed EDA development agreement. So that was approved, I believe, at the August of last year, right around that time. So essentially, different agreement, as amendment, assigned assumption agreement that extended the commencement deadline. So that's not been executed yet. The EDA did extend that to April 1st, so it was past that date. No matter what, I think at the next EDA meeting, there will be an update to the EDA and possible direction from them. Certainly some type of joint meeting could be helpful. And then another provision to execute a power agreement, and then finally a completed and signed special inspection and testing schedule form. So a lot of the structural plans have been submitted. Foundation plans, that's ready to go. Again, waiting kind of on the last few pieces, mechanical and electrical.
Chairman,
So-
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
James, when did the council, I believe it was council, said the restrictions or the building has to be enclosed? Do you remember the date of that? Was that back in that July, August?
So the enclosure was not a specific requirement from the EDA. So the city council really didn't have a whole lot into this. There was no conditional use permit required for this. So it was really looked at through the EDA,
Okay.
approving the construction plans. Obviously a big concern from the surrounding neighbors was sound. So while the city wasn't requiring the enclosure, certainly I think it was advantageous to the neighbors and to the city to potentially have that closed, not only for the neighbors, but for the future industrial park users. But that was put in as part of that agreement in August for the extension of the contract.
The beginning of August, right?
Yeah, I believe beginning of August.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think that, I feel like this is premature to ask for the extension when it seems like we have a lot of just negotiation yet to do with block metrics, with the EDA, with city council. There's a lot of defining markers that still need to be identified, clarified, and I think asking for extensions in small chunks sounds promising, but all you're doing is kicking it down the can, little chunks at a time, or kicking it down, further and further, because quite frankly, and Mr. Clark, I was at that August meeting when you two had first presented, and all of these things that you're stating, most of them, besides some of the design changes, were promised that you'd be up and running by February of 2025. That was the promise. And so it sounded promising, it sounded great, so everybody would move forward with it. Now we're only pushing it out 6 months, and you're, I don't even see it's feasible, because the very question, and I know the question was asked because I asked it, is have you ordered the transformers? Have you ordered some of this stuff already? And the answer was that you guys, that you would be ordering it because you knew that we were a year to 2 years out in getting some of this product in. And now you're saying 9 weeks to 12 weeks to 24 weeks, whatever it might be, but we know it's further than that. So I don't know how you could guarantee 6 months from now that you'd be up and running and functioning, and I am gonna echo exactly what Mr. O'Day said. The loss of what we have not seen, because we have the ability, maybe not to use it for the existing customer right now, because I know that they didn't do everything by the book either. But we have the ability to offer it to other people as well. We have the ability to offer to anybody else coming in, and we're losing that ability because we made a promise to VCD, now to you, but at this point, we don't even really have a promise to you because we don't have a contract. So I just think that we maybe need to pull this at this point, and to not not agree to it at this point, to go back to the we need to negotiate something, whether it's seeing some sort of you have incurred some financial cost, I get it, but so have we, substantially, with staff time and some of the things that, if you want to put pen to paper, it gets costly on both sides of it. So if we want to try to get this thing to move a little further down the line, I don't think we're gonna get that resolved here. I think it needs to be at negotiating some additional terms with some additional departments that need to be included in this conversation. That's my 2 cents about the whole deal.
Yeah, I would suggest that our operations committee meet with, we also have our council liaison and the council president who are on our other committee that meets with Baxter and all of that, I think. And our attorney, I think we need to have a meeting.
And I would disagree with the operations committee. I think that's full commission. I think the entire commission needs to be as part of that conversation.
Okay, that's fine
So
too,
that
but
was
then let's have a special meeting to do that.
100% agreed with EDA and city council, so everybody's on, and with block metrics. I mean, the more that is at the table to discuss and iron out these problems, the happier I'm gonna be, I think, in the end. That's my opinion.
Like, I don't even know how we could make a motion to give a 6-month extension on something that doesn't exist. I mean, am I thinking correctly?
Well, I agree, it's a new contract.
I mean, this contract never got executed. It's gone. It's nothing. there's no contract, I mean, in the real world, if there's a contract, there's two people that signed it, and then you start moving forward on a project. This is a fagoozy or whatever you call it, in my eyes.
We had worked with Chris Evans on the redlining of the agreement, and that last remaining piece that we were negotiating on was that date, that energization date, so we'd gone through the redline process. But yes, it was not executed yet, but that negotiation was.
It's not executed now.
Correct.
Not yet, it's not executed now.
Correct, correct.
Period.
It's a base to start with, but I think we need to meet with EDA. And
I wanna make a motion, but I don't even know how to make a motion, because it's.
well,
Yeah,
that's something we
Okay.
can decide at the end. I mean, we can decide when we wanna have that meeting and adjourn to that meeting from here. But we'll keep in touch, go with you guys, I guess, and try and have that meeting as soon as possible would be my suggestion, and then get back to you and tell you what we come up with and negotiate from there. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, and I think just how that gets scheduled, we work through Nick and Danny, and, okay. Yes, sir.
Just so I'm crystal clear, I think I am. What we're looking for, what you guys are looking for is a joint meeting with the full commission, full council, and the full EDA and block metrics. Is that a true statement?
And us.
Yeah, I thought I said full commission, I think I did.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, commission, EDA, council, block metrics.
I almost want a meeting without block metrics first.
Yeah, I agree, because I want our attorney Kayla
Yep,
involved
both
in that too,
attorneys.
so I would like to meet without block metrics first, and then from there, we would have whatever negotiation strategy we'd like to put in place and go forward from there.
So I'll work, James is the executive director for the EDA. I'll work with staff at BPU, and we'll get something on the schedules as soon as we can, with just the 3 government entities at this point.
And as soon as possible, I
Right.
guess, so we can.
Yeah, I mean,
that would only be fair.
We're losing money every day. We just lost money in the 20
About
minutes.
55 grand a month.
Yeah, we just lost money in the 20 minutes we discussed this, in my opinion.
Are you guys good?
Can we consider going back to the city for reevaluation on the sound ordinance? Is the facility that's consuming the 22, as I understand this, the air cooled, they must have towers and different sound provisions for where they are, which probably not as even industrial as where we are, as I understand, but is that a possibility?
I was at that meeting when you, with the city council, when you were taking over from VCV. And we had a number of residents that were at that meeting and had complained previously to that. And you guys were the ones that stepped up to the plate and said, we'll do this, we'll do that. We are gonna use the newest technology to make this as quiet as possible. So, I mean, it wasn't just the city, you volunteered that from the beginning. I was there.
No, I understand, but we could do without, for instance, a building structure if we had the ability to change the things, and Roe is more of an expert in this than I am in terms of modification of the housing for these things, but my understanding is that if we could do something that was like a container type of structure, we could still use machines that would be would create less noise, but we wouldn't have to worry about the cooling towers, which I'm sure that those guys have sound that would far exceed ours for what we planned. But if we could look at what they're doing and see if we could have sort of a level playing field from that regard, maybe that would be helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say modular data centers can be deployed a lot faster. However, there was an aversion to using modular data centers from city council and some additional steps that would need to be taken. So we're certainly open to doing that to speed up the project. That actually helps us as well, if city council's open for that discussion.
This isn't the board to ask that question to, that's,
And I think I can clarify that, so I think that is pretty much completely off the table. City council passed an ordinance that would not allow, any more type of outdoor storage containers for that type of use, which would also apply for, just for crypto, if they wanted to expand their operations. They're grandfathered in for what they have right now, but, certainly would not be able to expand, any of their outdoor operations, so. I know there's a roof over the cooling towers, that could potentially be on the table for the EDA to review, maybe a slight change to that, to maybe not require the roof over anymore, but certainly sound barrier walls or something to mitigate sound would still have to be approved by the EDA, but certainly the containers are not something that the city is looking at moving forward with.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments, discussion?
So at this point, we're just removing this agenda item, correct? At this point,
We are
and
removing
we'll set
this.
up a joint meeting.
Yep, and then we'll proceed with a joint meeting after that can get scheduled.
Nick, do you see this being an evening meeting then?
Yeah. It'll be in the evening. I'll work with staff as soon as we finish up here and we'll get something scheduled as quickly as we can. But I'm sure it'll be an evening meeting.
And I'm thinking we'd probably send out like a doodle poll or something to figure out best availability.
Give us 3 dates or
Yeah.
2 or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone, thank you for being in person as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Sorry for my earlier interruption. It's difficult over the phone, but I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clark.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, we'll move on to commission committee reports, starting off with personnel.
So, we didn't meet at all this month, but I am concerned about our committees and the definition of why the committees were formed and the purpose of the committees. So I'm just gonna say my piece right now and then move on. So the personnel committee I thought was organized, and I don't think we have a clear definition of our responsibilities with these committees, was organized to oversee some of the requests from staff and the lack of staff and or the need for additional staff and where areas were needed to help with, initiate job descriptions with HR, and proceed accordingly. I mean, that was the whole purpose of personnel. It wasn't to identify HR issues or whatever. The finance committee was because, of course, there's a lot to go over with 4 departments. To internalize and go over these things, make recommendations. But ultimately, I think I was part of the operations committee when it was created, and it was because policies were coming to the commission at that time, like late fee policies and shut-off policies, and it seemed like we were using commission time to redline certain policies, or it seemed like it would be more of a better use of like a work group or a committee, so we formed the operations committee. My concern, based off of the meeting agenda, is that everything is going into the operations committee at this point, and I kind of thought that the commission's purpose was to help oversee the operation of the utility. So I think a lot of it is getting moved into some of the committees, and then it's based off recommendations of 2 people. And that we're not hearing all sides of issues that we should be listening in on and or being a part of some of the discussions. So I'm gonna question our committee roles and our committee responsibilities. Moving forward, I'd like a clearer definition of what our committee's functions are supposed to be. And if operations continues to need to be a committee, since it is more of a commission responsibility, I just would simply ask that. So that's all I have to report on, because at this point, the only thing that I saw on personnel was that applications for the interim, and I read that on the HR director's report, was that first applications were supposed to be opened yesterday. And I don't know if that just goes through HR first to get, who qualifies to move into that interim position, or, to be interviewed for the interim position, or if it just gets selected by the city administrator, I don't know that, but that would be where I would have loved to have had some communication. So that's why I just wanted to ask the function of what the committees are supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think just being part of the personnel committee, I was just looking back and taking a look at our organizational chart. So the most recent that I think we're all using, but I'm not sure, from a city council standpoint and the commission. So from a personnel committee side of things, I would like is to meet Dolly and look into that and take some time to talk with staff about that, the VP staff, just to see if there are things that we want to implement with specific people and staff, and looking ahead at potential transitions or training and all of that. So, but I think just for us to all be on the same page in terms of what that org chart is, who's doing what, how we're structured, I just feel like we need to get back in front of that. And then also have, as part of that, communication with the city. And just create that line of communication that way, but then also just get your input from the staffing standpoint. Looking at everybody here in the crowd with the VP staff. So I feel like we need to look at that and just bring that back up. And then again, making sure that we're all referencing the same document. So that would be a request that I have for the personnel committee here over the next month.
Just to follow up on that also, Mike, just a thought. I think Thursday, is that when the deadline is for people applying for the interim? Is that correct?
We were gonna post that for,
So the interim director, what it said was first review would be as of yesterday. So there was 4 applications yesterday. I shared them with Nick, and then we were going to talk to, figure out what to do from here. An interim is not defined in our employee policy manual, just an acting.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out that process.
Just for this commission to discuss, personally, I would like to hold off on a director. I think we have, and the organizational chart really shows that Trent in charge of electric, Danny in charge of finance, and Charlie with wastewater, and that the commission is above that. On the personnel side, Nick is above that. I personally would like to see us hold off on an interim and run with the 3 working together. They all 3 work together very well, and I think we save ourselves quite a bit of money, and just wait for a while and see where we go from there. That would be my suggestion.
if I may, I think personnel committee is Dolly and Mike.
That's correct, yep.
I would be open. I think it would be beneficial if the 3 of us maybe just sat down and visited for a little bit. I was gonna talk to you after the meeting anyways, but I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I just know that we have 3 weeks without a public utilities director that we could gauge right now and have that discussion to see how things have been going. Because we don't have a department head attending any department head meetings. So I look forward to the conversation, because I do want to know how information from City Hall is getting disseminated to Brainerd Public Utilities staff. I know we've got great people in place, but where's that connection? Where's that missing piece? That was the point of having a public utilities director. So it'll be a discussion, a good discussion that I'd like to have.
And just for my part, and I think with the interim thing, I think I dropped the ball on that a little bit, but my intention, but when Chris Evans was here, if I needed to communicate something to the utility, I went through Chris Evans. My plan in the short term right now is to send things to Danny, Trent, and Charlie.
All 3.
That's something I think we can discuss too and see if that's working for you guys.
Do we need a motion to hold off on?
I think we need to have the discussion first, because right now we're looking just even at an interim, and what would be the harm in at least looking at an interim? We can decide.
My only motion would be to hold off on appointing an interim director. That's all I'm concerned about.
I think it would probably be a recommendation. I think that would probably be a council decision, but that could certainly be a recommendation from the commission.
Well, I don't know if it's a council decision. We are the ones by charter who ask for employees to be then hired by the city council. So I think a lot of that is our decision by charter.
And I'm not gonna disagree with you. That's why I think that just
I mean, we can do it
This
as
is
a
a perfect
recommendation. I'm not
example of
gonna
why I
fight-
think
I
we
don't
need to
wanna
visit
fight
more
about
about this,
that,
so we're understand what everybody's roles and responsibilities
Which is
are.
why I don't think a motion should be made at this point to whether to hold off and or to hire. So I think we need to have the conversation first as to if it's even needed. I think the conversation has to be had before any motions need to be made as far as direction and where we're gonna go. So I guess that's my question. I mean, how can we make a motion to hold off if we find out after our conversation
Because
it's definitely needed?
Because right now, they've asked for applications and pending approval of
Doesn't mean we
appointing
have-
somebody.
But it doesn't mean we have to extend an offer to anybody. But
But
just by
what's
asking
out there to
for-
say that they shouldn't? Just
Again,
this discussion?
No, again, this is where I say, what is the responsibility of the committee? The personnel committee should have been part of that. I think when we are looking at a public utilities director, I believe when we were hiring the public utilities, it was 2 people from commission, 2 people from council, the city administrator and HR. So how is that any different from hiring the interim public utility director?
Well, I agree.
Still that, so I don't know
But the
how-
process is in place.
What does the charter say?
Says that the BPU commission asks the city hall to hire employees that we ask for.
Is that, Jeff, is that how you see it and read it?
That's pretty much how I understand the charter to read. The commission will tell the council what they need for staff. I'm not sure if it says shall or may, then council then provide that.
Cause in my 11 years of being here and being through several, of this position, 90% of what I've dealt with, boots on the ground, is Danny, Trent, and Sean. I agree with Mark. I think we should slow this down and put a pause on this, cause I really, as a commission member, wonder if we need this position, or if those 3 guys could just handle it.
Well, we have an agenda packet going out this week for Monday's meeting, and that might be something to just, as a recommendation to perhaps put a pause on that. Just throw it out there for a P&F committee to bring back to council. Because that's who made the recommendation coming out of committee to the council to move forward with the interim. So,
I agree with everything that's being said, including you, Dolly.
Yeah.
I agree with everybody
But I just
too.
know, I just wanna make sure that that pause happens. So if that can happen just by hearing our discussion, I'm fine with however it happens. And then I think personnel committee needs to get involved and go from there.
I'm just gonna, if I may, I'll read verbatim what the charter says. The city council shall employ all necessary help for the commission to properly perform its duties and approve all terms and conditions of employment. Personnel for vacant positions may be recommended by the commission to the city council. All commission personnel are subject to city personnel policies. Just to allow for that. And I think that's the whole piece of it. It was the recommendation of, again, why the personnel committee was formed, to identify the needs and or deficiencies that we need to ask for the city council, to help fill those positions. So I would prefer to have the conversation first to see if we move forward. So however we can do that, that would be great.
Could we do that between now and, Jeff, when did you say the next meeting was?
meeting's Monday the 5th.
Meeting's Monday.
So our packet's coming out on Thursday, I guess.
Thursday.
Yeah. So.
I'd also just like to say that our construction coordination meetings, we meet every 2 weeks, and those are going well, and we're getting more coordinated together. And today we'll be having our 10-year construction plan here presenting to you all, and so those meetings are going well too. Just to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you. So do we want to have that meeting before
Yeah,
this
I have
Thursday?
it right
or
after
does
today if that
work?
works. But yeah, I'm available whenever it works for you guys.
It's a good discussion. Yeah, it's really good discussion. Okay, thank you. Let's move into Finance Operations Committee. Who wants to take it?
I will, I guess.
Okay.
The first one is approve a 5-year rate plan. And Chris Evans had put together that rate plan. And he did go out for 5 years. Our committee agreed with that. However, I'm not comfortable with agreeing to go 5 years. I'm okay with, the next 2 adjustments. Beyond that, I don't want to personally approve 5 years and then all of a sudden these rate hikes take place without anybody ever discussing it again. I'm only here till the end of the year. I don't want to hold, future commissions from changing rates, but I like what he did and put together. I think it shows a good path to success, but I would move that we approve the next 2 rate adjustments.
The next 2 years or the next
2 adjustments.
And the adjustments are every 6 months?
Yes. Because I'm not here after that. I don't think or whoever is here, every year someone comes off of here or potentially comes off. I don't think it's fair to go more than past the end of the year, because I think that's future commission's responsibility to do that.
I agree with you that it's a stretch to go out the 5 years, but with you leaving and Dolly and Mike being the only 2 left and me only being here 3 months, I would sure like to have time to get my feet underneath me. I sure would like to see 24 months, 2 years. And when we had our meeting, and I have a sheet here, I had artificial intelligence do a rate study on the state of Minnesota to compare BPU's rates to other small power providers. Just on the power side, we're the cheapest in the state. Our power is the cheapest rates in the whole state of Minnesota. We have not increased them the way we should have. We have not increased them with cost of living, and as somebody that pays some pretty big power bills, it's pretty hard for me to even sit here and swallow that I'm saying that. But I also, if my community and my utility isn't sound, then why am I here investing? Why am I here spending my money? So I would sure like to see a motion for 2 years of this rate study instead of just 2 6-month terms. And if we could get that motion, I would be.
I already made a motion. Yeah, we're at what, 7.96 or something like that is our residential rate. With a 10%, we're still, under 9.
That's 8.6.
Was that?
8.6 presently.
For residential?
And the average on this study is 12.
Yeah, there's as high as 16. There's one up on the range that's 16. I don't know if they have a huge demand charge, what that is. I'm guessing that's what it is.
Part of what you'll see in the rural development areas is that they have to build a lot of infrastructure to serve 1 meter. Most of those meters are only really occupied during deer season, so they have that infrastructure cost all year to really only have that meter using energy for a month or a couple of weeks a year. So that's where a lot of those Iron Range and northern Minnesota rates you see very high for that reason.
Yeah. But anyhow, even with our 10% increase, we would still be below 9 cents, which is, I think, still really fair to our ratepayers. We do have a responsibility to the ratepayers to try and keep rates, I think, as low as possible. It helps the economic development of the city, and 10%, to me seems like a lot. And then when you're looking at, another one in 6 months, I think that's far enough to go with the rates, and then you see where you're at, from there, previous, a year from now, for what you want to do in June, and again, and my motion, I guess, is still on the table.
Mr. Chair, wasn't there documents in the document that you come back and approve it every 6 months regardless? Or was that the water?
We started the water change here a couple of months ago.
The way, what I meant though, Mark, was I thought that even though it was scheduled out for 5 years, it was to come back and just get approval. Was I incorrect in remembering what I read?
Danny?
Yes, Danny?
You're just correct, that we had a conversation and in the documentation, the request from committee was to review it and before each adjustment.
So why would you need to approve all of them now? I mean, if you don't, that makes sure that you're gonna have to go back and look at this in a year from now.
Well, as a large power user, I want to know what's gonna happen. I don't want to have to wonder every 6 months what my rate increase is gonna be or not be. I can't plan, I can't invest, I can't design when it's so wishy-washy. We need stability in this town and with our utility. I mean, our sewer runs backwards, what, $500,000 a year? I mean, we've gotta get some stability and we've gotta be able to plan. As an investor in this town, and as somebody that pays a lot of money, I wanna know what they are. I don't, you saying that we're gonna review my power bill every 6 months and we could change it or not change it, it just scares me. I'd rather know.
You could do that anyhow. This commission
I
could do that
understand it, and that's
anyhow.
why I'm saying what I'm saying. How do you invest? How do I make business decisions in the millions of private money, not government money, my money, bank money that I pay interest on? How do I do that when we're so wishy-washy with rate changes? I mean, I'm on both sides of this. And when I look at this study that I showed everybody and how cheap our power is, I don't want to be the lowest, I don't want to be the highest, I want to be average. I want Brainerd to be average, in the middle. I mean, even if we go to 10 cents, we're still way below average in northern Minnesota. So I want stability. I don't want 6-month increments. I want to know what's going to happen in general with my power bill and my water bill and my sewer bill for the next couple of years. So I can, you know, if my electric or power or electric or water rates go up at my restaurant, I have to make changes in my pricing. I have to make adjustments in real time. So the decisions that are made up here affect all that. I want to know out a ways so I can make adjustments and not. There's a riffle that happens every time we do this. There's a riffle in the community that nobody thinks about or nobody talks about. It's like the white elephant in the middle of the room. And we have a lot of businesses in Brainerd that go through that same riffle.
All that sounds really nice, but in the manufacturing world, we don't know from month to month what our cement charges are gonna be. We don't know if Hengel they don't tell us that 6 months from now, we're gonna change the rate on your sand. I mean, pallets go up, I mean, everything. Nobody tells you for the next 2 years out what their prices are gonna be. It's a, you know, it's a buy and fly. I mean, that's the way the world works as far as I see it. So, I mean, yeah, it would sure be nice if you could. I mean, we go through a lot of power too, but I mean,
Mr. Chair.
yeah.
Mike?
Yep.
Sorry. Could I just suggest that you either give a second to the motion or not, and then move forward based on that with another motion if this one doesn't get a second?
And I'll second for further discussion.
Okay, we have a second, further discussion.
And I appreciate both sides. It's actually good discussion to hear from both sides. But my question would be, you know, and it's great that he figured out a 5-year rate plan presentation, and I think it's important that we do come back and look at it every 6 months. But I agree with Mr. Higgins. I agree that, you know, how do you move forward if you don't have some stability in what your rates are going to be for the year? So my question is, could we do a 2-year? I'm trying to find the compromise here. Could we do a 2-year with commission every 6 months reviewing it to see that we are on track? You know, that not necessarily that we would adjust every 6 months, but that going into year 3, the first 6 months, are we on track with these calculations that were made. I think it's a good suggestion. I don't know if it's a good compromise, but I'm trying to find half.
I would be fine with that. You guys are gonna be the ones who
I
are
know.
still here, so.
Mhm.
I mean, I just bring up my motion because I'm not gonna be, and I don't wanna hold
Appreciate that.
future commissions hostage. So, I mean, I would withdraw my motion.
Do you have to withdraw, or could you just amend it to 2 years? To continue to be reviewed every 6 months? like
Okay,
you
I'll
mentioned?
amend it then.
Okay.
That's fine,
And
to 2 years.
I would second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Can you tell me what the motion is now?
To,
Mike Higgins' rates will never increase.
yes, that we have a, based off the structure, right, that we have the rate increase every, for the next 2 years. But the commission would come back every 6 months to continue to review it. So by going into year 3 and looking at the schedule that has been presented to us, are we in line going into year number 3?
And I think that would be great. I think our staff would appreciate that because they can follow this guideline and they can be building data and learn from it. And I think that would be a great compromise, and I appreciate you making your amendment.
We've been meeting every week as the operations committee going through this, and you know, with the amount of infrastructure that has to be done, we see that there's really good reason to do what we're doing here.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 2 of 6.
Okay, approve Bolton and Mint quote wastewater facility plan. Is there a motion to approve?
Oh.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
And I make a motion to approve the 468,480.
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Open it up for discussion.
I was a little concerned that we had asked them to redline and take into consideration growth and future needs of the facility. So I am glad to see that we are going with the original request, and thank you for that motion.
I don't like the price, but the sense of urgency on what's gonna happen in the next 10 years with our wastewater facility and with what's going on in the world with PFAS and state and federal regulations kind of scares me. So I don't like just having one bid and one price and one contractor, but I think they've done a good job from what I know in 3 months, and I think we need to get a grasp on what's going on with our waste treatment facility.
Mr. Chapoulis, I see you in the crowd, so you've had a chance to review this as well, or been discussed about it?
Yeah, City of Baxter supported with going with the original proposal.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion passes.
Next is approve dying to film quote $3,200 to do a hydro tour video.
I make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion?
I've been fascinated with the dam since the day I got here. I think it is a completely untapped resource that the city has. I think that we need to advertise it more, we need to market it more, people need to know more about it. I've been fascinated and was fascinated when I first bought the paper mill about how nobody even knew the dam was there, or most people in our community have never been in it, never been around it, never seen it. And as the person that owns most of the property around it, you can see it, it's absolutely amazing. The wildlife, just everything that goes on with the dam is cool. So I think having these guys do a video and using that as a marketing tool for our city is important.
That's great. Who's dying to film? Who are they?
Riley Nelson is the owner.
Okay.
Local guy, he lives 2 blocks from the dam, he reached out.
He's your next door neighbor.
Oh, nice. He reached out after seeing the promotional budget item for videos on the commission packet from last year and asked for a tour and put this together for us.
He's done stuff with NPC, he's really good.
Okay, all right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Next item is approved credit card transaction fee. Danny?
Credit card transaction fees. So, as you saw in the check packet, our fees increased almost double again this last month. That was from Global Payments, our processor. The last commission action was to implement a fee of 4.75%. When we proposed that and started talking, Visa and MasterCard came back to us and said, you will not do that, meaning they would not allow us to accept a Visa or MasterCard if it's over 3% or 4% respectively. So we've looked at what the other departments are doing. The city of Baxter recently, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have also imposed a transaction fee, and it's a dollar amount per transaction plus a percentage. That is, we did talk about passing on all of the fees and BP not collecting any dollars from credit card transactions. What our processor is telling us currently is that then our customers would see 3 transactions occur on their credit card. One would go to us, one would go to Tyler Encode, and one would go to Global Payments. We thought that might get a little confusing, so our recommendation is putting together $1.25 per transaction, which covers the Tyler Encode fee, and 3%, which is allowed by Visa, and reevaluating after that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
I'm just still very concerned how Global and Tyler can put their hands into this and charge us an additional fee on top of the credit card fees. I don't understand that. It makes 0 sense to me how somebody can recoup a fee for service when they're not doing the service. So I know we briefly talked about that. I would love to look into that a little bit further to see why that's even an option.
So my understanding of the $1.25 is that's what allows our customers to see that they've paid their bill immediately.
Okay. And
So-
that's a service from Tyler and Global?
Just Tyler.
So how does Global fit into this?
Global is the processor that's allowed by Tyler. So Tyler has a negotiation with Global Payments.
It just doesn't make any sense to me why they get to tack on an extra fee. I'm just really struggling with that.
They get a kickback on their kickback.
It should be, it's part of the software. I mean, that's the piece that I'm struggling with. I would like to investigate into that a little further.
Are we in a contract with them, Danny?
Yes.
It's part of our general ledger package.
But do we renew that yearly?
We do renew it.
Is that something we've ever shot to see if somebody can do it better, cheaper? I mean, I do that in.
The opportunities are there to use other processors, but then you're not getting the live or payment has been made.
Okay.
So you could go through a different processor, in which case the import-export process might take up to 2 days for those customers to see their payment. That becomes a challenge when we're doing our disconnects, unfortunately.
And that becomes a separate issue. We can discuss further because it is a contract we're already obligated to. I appreciate at least breaking it down. 3% is the max we can go with Visa MasterCard? Okay.
I mean, this is a big number. I was reading the packet and noticed $112,000 basically payment that's coming out of our pocket, and did the math in my head real quick and text Danny, and I'm like, what's going on? So I mean, we have to do, I mean, I don't see how we can't not do this, but can we do something better in the future, do some homework or research and see if there's a better option out there?
We'll continue our research.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign, motion passes. 5.
Ratify project priority list submission for water. Go ahead.
I can take that. So as part of the funding requirements, when we're doing any water, wastewater projects, we need to submit a project priority list. This project priority list that was submitted in the budget, it missed the cover page. Cover page just said that staff recommend ratifying and approving the project priority list. It does not mean we get funding, it just tells the state what our project priorities are going forward. Morgan from Bolton Mank is in the audience if you would like to ask any questions. They drafted this for us. We printed it on letterhead and submitted it for your approval.
Okay, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is second, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 6.
Item number 6, approve budget amendment, Evergreen Lift Station pumps.
Sorry, I don't know why bookmarks went.
Anybody want to give me background on this?
I can take this
Yeah.
one. So as part of our annual budget process, we had $100,000 budgeted for each year, 25, 26, and 27, for Evergreen Lift Station pump improvements and additional connections. Easiest way to say that, Charlie? Gate valves and.
Give those checks, general maintenance.
As we looked at pricing and what's happening, we are noticing that if we were to contract this all out as a 4 bid in 1 year, we could save roughly $1,000. And as we looked through that, we determined that we would want to present that for a budget amendment, moving that $300,000 to 2025. It'd be an increase of about $135,000 in total for 25. Staff feel like we can cash flow that $135,000 in this year, and then we remove those items from the budget for 26 and 27.
Make a motion to approve this budget amendment.
Second.
Okay. Motion second.
I,
Discussion?
sorry.
No, yep.
I think that Charlie did a great job on this. We talked about it at several meetings. Like Mike said, we've been meeting weekly. I think that if I was doing this for myself, I would have been very proud of my guys that did their homework. I like it also because it's proactive, and I've watched, and I've had to been reactive to a lot of things I've done in Brainerd, and I like getting ahead of this. So I appreciate the work that you put into this, and over the 3 years saving us some money, and then having a really good system in place for this lift station.
I only have a couple quick questions because, yeah, I always am concerned when I see a significant difference in bids. And so, and I never will question Charlie, only because I know that you know exactly your needs, but seems to be a substantial difference in, are they like-kind pumps?
Yes, pump curve wise, horsepower wise, and performance, yes.
It just seemed like Quality Flow had just a better quote in general, and a better warranty, and a better everything, and there was more to it. So then I often wonder, did they leave something else?
Right.
So you're pretty confident with the quote?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been working on this for about 2 years, and asking for quotes and getting rebuttal back and looking at savings. So looking at some of the vendors, I'm just gonna say, sometimes they're not very conducive of getting back to you.
Sure.
And to keep on begging for a quote sometimes gets a little bit arduous. And so that was where I had the 2 that put down for it, the ability to do it and provide the pumps at a reasonable installed cost. We do not have a crane truck that is capable of lifting these size pumps. So this is definitely an install situation when we talk about this station in and of itself.
Okay, like Electric Pump, the company, they had put in there the note the following, and Cranes was noted, where the other one just simply says installation. That's the only piece where I just question, is it gonna be a request for additional fees because they had to now bring in a crane? They know what this is.
They know installed price, and that's what I was trying to get in writing.
Thank you. Perfect, that's all I have.
Plus the warranty use.
Right, yes.
Okay,
Thanks, Charlie.
any other discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thanks a lot, guys, great work. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business. Item A, memo, direction requested on hydro generation project funding.
So, during the packet, you had the normal memo. The item that we would pull out to discuss is the direction on where the hydro funding went. So staff went, after the last commission meeting, we went down and had a testimony with I'm gonna screw up the name of the finance committee for energy and the renewable sources. We were received well, in our opinion. Marty Seifert was the lobbyist that was hired to help with that. He also thought that it was received well. The bill at that point was what they call laid over, meaning that they put it to the next step. During those next steps, they did not move forward with any of the funding requests. So at this time, the funding request for the hydro facility is been halted. We do have a request in with Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, and Pete Stauber, noting that this is one of the priorities that we had. Chris Evans submitted that before his departure. The question we really have for the commission is, how do we want to proceed? The last commission movement was to order 2 generators. We held off on ordering those because of the funding. BAR has attached their additional draft of information for consideration, and I will turn it over to Trent on anything I'd like to miss.
You know, I think that was very good. First of all, I'd like to thank the commission for the opportunity to go out and speak for the utility. That was a very humbling experience, something that I enjoyed very much, and hope I can continue to do that for the commission in the future. Danny said it was well received. It's a tough spot right now with some of the politics that are going on down there, but we were able to push through that and get our project in front of some of that, so I was happy with that. What we're really doing now is we're taking more of a phased approach with this project, knowing that we're not going to be able to bite it all if we want to chunk financially. We'd like to use the opportunity to get a generator installed in pit 6. Pit 6 is the pit that had the prototype generator with the Amjet project in it. We have a head gate installed there. There's minimal work that has to be done to that pit compared to the other ones to get it operational, their generator going. So really what they kind of have for the cost breakdown here, all these are very high estimates. There's a lot of things, lead times are going to take a while. We know our electrical equipment and our turbines are going to take us 2 years. Kind of what we're proposing and we're looking at for direction from the commission is how we want to fund that. If you want to move forward with this, our recommendation would be to move forward with option 1 to procure a generator and switchgear. We have all the procurements pretty much dialed in. This is something we would do in-house. EP would go out and procure this equipment previous to having a contractor or a general for the project. Knowing that we have a couple of years out on this equipment, to get a general involved right now, it's just us paying somebody to do nothing for 2 years in our perspective. So we would like to get the equipment on the floor in town and then continue to modify these projects with the commission's direction on how we want to continue moving forward. What's the appetite? Do we want to bond? Do we want to try to cash flow? Do we want to halt the project and wait for more funding opportunities? So we're really trying to scale it back. We do have needs that we will have to encompass in the next year or 2 in projects, but we have other ways to be able to kind of encompass that into another project also. So it's really, we know it's going to take us 2 years to get a generator. We pretty much have our procurement specs down. We just have to go out for bidding for that. The problem we're running into is we don't necessarily have the money. So that's the direction we're really looking for.
Do they ask for a percentage down at the time of order?
That's a great question. I could follow up with that one. I do not know that one off the top of my head.
And what's the total, I can't read that from here, what's the total cost of the generator?
So depending on what we're looking at, this is broken down between the high and low estimates here. About 4.3 million on the low end and about 7.7 million on the high end. These are a lot of contingencies built into this. We know the generator costs and the electrical equipment costs are pretty solid as far as that goes. Tariffs and the rest of the things that we're challenged with in all aspects of the utility right now are still those unknown numbers. When I asked BAR to put this together for us, I said I want it to be very broad. Once we get direction from commission, we'll be able to hone these down and sharpen these numbers up for you once we understand which way you would like us to pursue this.
So you're saying they're estimating the turbines 900 grand and the switch gears another 975?
Correct.
So technically that's all we would have to spend to get going? or in 2 years when it got here, depending on how the deal worked?
It would be the first steps to get the equipment in Brainerd, yes.
So I did talk to some political people after you guys went down and did your presentation, and you know, they said you guys did a good job too, it was very well received, and I've talked to Marty once. One of the things that I heard from those people that I talked to was if we have some of this in place, like the state's used to having somebody there with their hand out, we want $10 million or we're not gonna do nothing. And they kind of brush that off. Where if we say, come back to them in 2 years or next year, whenever we can, or we get in front of the federal government, and we say, look, we've already put one of these in, here's the data of what the return on investment is and how it worked. And we paid for that out of cash flow, or we borrowed some money, however that works in the government world. We're gonna have a lot better opportunity to get money because we're showing that we're doing something proactively instead of just sitting there with our hand out. So I was did some contracting work for the guy that worked on the other project and was down there, and you know, somebody else spent a lot of money on that we didn't have to. I think it would behoove us to take advantage of what's there, and if we can, you know, get something in there for, you know, I know that you're gonna work your magic with your guys I've seen it, witnessed it, been involved with it. You know, I think we should move forward and get this turbine coming and get one of these in. And then we'll have some data, you know, a year later, we'll know what an upgraded turbine does. We'll be able to look at a return on investment and know how to invest money into our dam from there. So I would totally support us figuring out how to get this money, taking out of cash flow, whatever we gotta do, to get one of these in to see what it does.
I would like to say we could just take our crypto money, if we could get the other one online, you know.
Well,
$1 million to a year goes a long ways.
Or if the guy that's here now could take half of it right away, in 2 years, yeah, we're not borrowing any money, we got the money.
So Trent, you need to go out for actual bids on this, is that what you're saying, and find out the down payment?
We go out for procurement on the generator spec. So basically what we have is we have the generator spec out, the one that we want to install that fits the best for our facility. We have that procurement, so we go out for bids for that. It's a little bit of a challenge because they don't make hydro generators they're made all over the world. Not a lot really made in the United States. So we're probably going across the big pond to receive this. Flight's going to be across the big pond. So this is where some of our concerns of possibly, you know, tariffs may be implemented on some of that. So that's why you see some soft numbers here. If you can give us a funding avenue, we'll definitely pursue this down and get it down to the cheapest penny we possibly can for you.
Do you need a funding option in order to go procure one then?
He asked if we want a bond or how we would like to approve that. If we do go for a bond, that's something that the city would be involved with, then all the bonds would go through the city.
Can we come up with $2 million out of cash flow to get the equipment on the ground?
I make him work, he pays for it.
What do you think, Danny? Raise electric rates.
We have to look, realistically, the question for the commission is, are you wanting to bond for a project that would require a recommendation to council? If you're not wanting to bond the project, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and evaluate that.
And we have to decide that before we go out for.
Not necessarily. So what we're trying to do, since we know the lead times are long on this equipment, we would like to get it in hand right now. And then after that equipment's in hand, we're talking probably anywhere from, you know, 18 to 24 months. Then we would continue to go into a general contractor, and then we'd search for a general contractor to help install the generator. There'll be probably a floating barge involved, and there's lots of moving pieces. When we originally scoped the project, we had different phases involved where we were actually going to have our gantry crane installed ahead of time. We were going to be able to install that with the gantry crane. As we're running into these funding challenges, the lowest hanging fruit that we have to make an investment at the hydro facility right now, the generation, is what we're looking at in Pit 6. So that big project that we had, the PEM beam and all of that, that's still being reviewed, that's being pushed out in farther phases into the project. So this is where we've got some investment already in a pit and the best bang for our buck. So I hope I captured your question.
If we were talking 20% down on turbine costs and electrical equipment costs, we wouldn't have to bond. No.
So that decision really could be made roughly even a year from now. I mean, who knows what rates are gonna do in a year from now? I mean, how much additional cash the utility will have. I mean, if you're saying we don't need to bond with down payment, it's 50%. Let's go out and get the bid. We gotta get going. If it's 2 years out, that we're wasting time.
Can we at least find out what we gotta put down to order it?
Absolutely.
I mean, let's find out what we gotta put down, and then we can make a more intelligent decision. I'm all for aggressively getting a generator in pit 6 just for the data.
Potentially, if you could give staff guidance on a limit that we could go up to, we could probably get this moving faster even. If we look at the equipment right now, knowing that we got a couple $1 million in that, if you wanted to give us the guidance of not to exceed, we could move forward with this and actually get it on happening before the next commission meeting, if you have that appetite.
I know we've done it in the past where the finance committee's been involved to expedite a process, like with solar,
Sure.
and I met with you guys, so.
That would be a good avenue
We can
also,
do
if that's
that.
what you'd like. We'll continue to work on and then give you an update and then the commissions.
So we can talk about this in the next finance meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
And basically, we're gonna trust Danny to tell us, you
Yeah.
know, how much we can go up to without looking at bonding. I mean,
Depending on when your special meeting is, you can also take action there.
right.
That's just what I was thinking too.
Yeah, Trent.
At least get a
find
feel
out
for
the
city
information.
council
Yeah.
on, I think we should add that to the meeting and we could have an open discussion and get a feel for what the city council, you know, just to make sure they're okay.
Sure.
A year from now, if we did wanna bond it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a huge step in getting us the $10 million that we want from the state or federal government.
Agree.
So, clarification, I'm hearing the direction is move forward on one generator, not on two.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that helps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. New business, discuss draft 10-year CIP, 26 to 2035.
That's Jesse.
That is Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So in your packet, we've got a draft of the 10-year, something that staff has been kind of developing and working on over the winter time. Just a quick reminder, it's kind of our goal is to balance a little bit of a reconstruction program, where we're addressing both street needs as well as underground utility needs, a little bit of a resurfacing program where it's just pavement needs, where we're not necessarily touching any of the underground utilities, as well as pavement preservation stuff, and then some of the miscellaneous projects like maybe some lining and stuff like that. That's kind of the goal of the program. Some things that we did do some revisions with this version of the plan is starting to really hone in our attack on some of the lead service stuff that we garnered with a lot of the inventory that we had this last year. So some of the groups of areas that we found that we did have lead service line issues, galvanized service line issues, we started to identify where can we group these into projects, where were we already kind of maybe doing projects that maybe we need to relook at the scope. So maybe a good example of that would have been the 2026, originally it was planned as a resurfacing in the South Brainerd, Graydon, Linden, that neighborhood. That was all going to be a resurface, knowing that a lot of that Graydon, Linden area was lead service line issues. We chose to kind of rescope that as more of a reconstruction area, since we're going to be essentially ripping up a lot of the curb and needing to replace a lot of the water service line as well. So changing that portion out into more of a reconstruct, and because of the size and scope, we split that out to two different projects. So kind of a south half being a resurfacing, north half being a reconstruction. Another example would be like in 2030, the Woodland Park Shady Brook reconstruction project. It's actually kind of a new project that showed up on the CIP. This is the Cedar, Emma, that whole neighborhood right around the water plant. That area wasn't on the CIP prior to, but the entire area was identified in that lead service line inventory. So within that, essentially like 7-8 years that we have to replace all these lines, the pavement's getting rough, and knowing that we're gonna have to replace an awful lot of those service lines, this is something that we identified and moved up in our priority list. pretty high up, obviously, in there, so. Kinda did a little bit of tweaking based on that, but we are going to have to do some more work to this plan over the next year, working with Trent as we're executing that next plan this year, of going and identifying all the unknown areas, so, areas that aren't on this right now, maybe be tileable. As we go through there, if we find that there's essentially lead service lines in that entire neighborhood, that might be a project that we would have to identify instead of patching the entire neighborhood up. We might be better served to do an actual capital project in there. So that is something to be determined after we do a little bit more investigation this year, in next year's version of the plan. But we didn't wanna go too far down that road until we knew what we were dealing with, after identifying some of those unknowns. But with what we did identify, we adjusted the plan accordingly as best as we could. And then there's some areas like the Oak Street reconstruction project, so this is an area where, we know that the pavement's gonna be, well, it's already in rough shape. It's gonna be in really rough shape after the 210 project, and a lot of the detour traffic goes down there. But it has some utility needs, the water's in rough shape, it's an old 14-inch water main that goes down that way, so we're gonna replace that as well. And we were lucky enough to get a grant that's gonna cover an awful lot of more of the street infrastructure and stuff, but those are just different opportunities that this version of the plan is a little bit different than maybe last year's version of the plan. But definitely trying to come up with one that's trying to do its best to balance top and bottom needs as well as a good amount of pavement needs, so that way the entire system is kind of being pulled up all at the same time. We do have the East River Road, the interceptor lining project still identified in 2027. Charlie and I have talked about that. We need to do some more investigation on that one, see if that needs to be reprioritized differently or if that can stay at 2027. We're gonna work with SEH on that one, as they kind of helped us out with the first section of the interceptor lining. So right now we have that identified in there. The other parts of the other parts of lining, we wanna talk with the council about what their level of interest, I suppose, would be for investing with overall lining program throughout the city to help us out with, poor sewer conditions, I-9, things like that. And then how do we identify that in the plan? Is it an annual program every couple of years and do a big project? Things like that. So those are different things we wanna have conversations with the council on what level of investment they wanna do into those things. We have been investing with their storm sewer on a somewhat annual basis too, to identify some of these outfalls that have been falling apart over several years. We've been starting to pick those away now, which is good, but we'll continue to do that until most of those have been done. But with that, what we're really looking for is commission input, recommendations, and considerations that we can bring forward to the council as we go to more of like a budget workshop with the council, and have more discussions with them as well as we bring this towards kind of budget season.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
How does, and I'm dumb, so with the charter and with, I'm still trying to get an understanding of how this money flows between the city and the commission. As I understand it right now, we are in charge of electric, water, and lift stations and the waste treatment plant.
Correct.
You guys are in charge of gravity. Is my understanding of that correct?
Correct.
So so our input to what you just discussed in your budgets and what you're gonna do, like, how does our input work with that?
If I could just interject, with our construction meetings that we're meeting on bi-weekly basis, we're doing that and we're inputting all of your guys' stuff in there. And at some point in time, and I've already had some small conversations with council, at some point in time, we are gonna have to put out the street to do our water service lines. And that's gonna be the balance of that. How do we do that? Our storm waters, the 50,000 that you saw in there, that will just put a Band-Aid on it. we need to really look at our stormwater. We got some infrastructure that needs to really done, and our sewer lines. There's a lot of projects that need to be done out there. Our rate study that we need to be doing for the sewer and stormwater needs to be looked at. So there's a lot of balancing acts with this, and our construction meetings are, we have some good conversations, some, you know, heated conversations, and which is good, because we need to know those priorities to put them into balance. And that's where we both come together and work. Now, the finance part of it, that'll be Danny and Connie, but.
But we have to approve the like, if you come to us as the city, and I hate this divide. I don't like this feeling or this divide in this charter and the way the money flows. It's in the real world, this is ridiculous. So I don't mean to be Mike Higgins on you.
No,
I'm just
you're right.
trying to get an understanding and ask some questions. Can you guys say we gotta replace all these lead lines and then we have to pay for it? I mean, how does the cash flow work?
No, so I guess why Jesse's presenting is as part of the engineering side, they engineer the water main. So we identify a road project, that road project's identified, that water main gets engineered during that road project. So on his CIP here, he has the water fund column. So over the next, this is 10-year plan, there's $19 million just in water infrastructure that is on the plan as part of that.
That comes out of our budget?
Correct.
He's doing the engineering?
Correct.
We have to approve that?
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Is that, and I'm not arguing, I mean, I want you to put 40 million into our water, just so you know where my mind is. I'm just trying to figure out the cash flow.
Correct. So we have developed a lot of the priorities in this plan based on a lot of discussions over the last couple of years. So, you know, one of the first things I did when the first few months in here was, where do we really need to be? And a lot of the discussions, not only from water, but also in our sewer, was northeast and southeast were big areas. We've done a lot of work in north, quite a bit. North town's pretty new. In south, we obviously just got through an awful lot. And we're gonna be getting into the Brainerd area shortly. But northeast is an area of need, southeast is an area of need. So if you look through this 10-year plan, you have reconstructions to those neighborhoods littered throughout the entire 10-year plan. So we are trying to address all of those areas as best as we can, wherever possible.
And I feel bad for you because I've been here 11 years, I say that all the time, but this is the most reactive community I've ever been involved with and been invested in 4 states and traveling, doing paper mill type projects that I did. So I've said since the day I got here, it's kind of wild how far behind we are. So I'm just trying to figure out how it cash flows, and we're having meetings talking about rate increases, and we need to know this data, like what's coming up over 10 years. If I'm gonna be on the finance committee and you guys are gonna allow me to be on this commission, I gotta ask those questions, because I wanna know, I need to know how much money you need so that we're making proper rate increases or looking at alternate funding or whatever we gotta do. So that's the only reason I'm asking this question, and I appreciate you being here and doing the work that you do. I'm trying to get up to speed only being at 3
And this
months.
one really focuses a lot on the street side. I'm glad Danny brought this up. It doesn't hammer out a lot of the other, to your point, like lift stations and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's other pieces that go into the maybe more capital budgeting and stuff, but it's one piece of the puzzle. And what we've talked about is there is a lot of balancing that goes into it, because you have like a water line, a sewer line that have certain expected life cycles versus a pavement that has a certain, and how do you balance those? Because this is going to expire at a certain time versus this is going to expire at a certain time, and trying to get them to time out at certain times. So you may be doing a resurfacing, but you're not planning to be doing a utility because it's only 10 years old, versus pavement is 20 or 30. So it's trying to get everything to balance out, so you're not trying to replace anything too prematurely or too long. So to your point, we're trying not to be too reactive, and trying to be looking at the long range and doing a good balance of not only preservation but rehab and maintenance from that side of it, but also addressing where the needs are and being aggressive that way.
Where can we put lipstick on the pig and where do we need a new pig?
David?
For, I guess for Mike's clarification, what I pulled up is this is the 25 through 28 budget, capital budget. So this is 2026 here, this is under the water, this is the water department. So we're talking for 2026, we have this 2.5 million for the Highway 210 project, and then $700,000 in the Southeast Brainerd reconstruction project. How that relates, that's the budget piece here that we're talking about. On Jesse's CIP plan, that comes under this 26 water fund, so these are the highlighted here at 26. So looking at this is the 2.5 million for 210, and then we have 830,000 here. So on our budget for next year, I'll be adjusting to Jesse's most recent number here, where that 700,000 is.
Got it.
That's where this CIP plan that he puts together, that flows through on just the water fund on our approved budget in this city water main projects. That's how this is flowing, and then we get essentially the city coordinates that, and then bonding happens at the end of the year.
I guess this is more a question maybe for Danny, for anybody for that matter. Is there a single document, you know, when I think of enterprise funds, and I've managed several enterprise funds, you know, you can go out, you don't want to go out in perpetuity because this just becomes kind of pie in the sky at some point. But for all these enterprise funds, I mean, is there simply a one-stop shop where we can show, here's a fund balance at the end of year X, that gets put up in the revenue for the year of X plus 1. You have all your projected revenues for that fund. You have all your project costs, your projected project costs that year, all your capital costs. And at the end of the year, you have another fund balance. I mean, then from a rate perspective, when you see the fund balance is trending up or down, you can see when a fund is going to become unhealthy. You know, we can look at an enterprise fund, they say this is going to be unhealthy in 5 years. We're going to be upside down. So then we start, to your point, I agree, I think this is a very reactive community, very. And that's no way to conduct business. So that's when we get out in front of these things and we talk about rates 5 years in advance of the problem. Does that exist?
I have not put that together. I mean, I have the.
Yeah, just food for thought.
Not with capital. No.
Something we can maybe continue to discuss. I think would be beneficial.
I think it's the start of how we get to be more proactive versus reactive. Because when I looked at the budgets in a meeting a few weeks ago, I was shocked, especially at our sewer and wastewater on how far negative. I mean, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul every month. And I mean, I do that in my businesses, but at some point I have to put my foot down and stop and be like, these separate entities have to work on their own.
Right.
Like I can't, the longevity of me taking money out of one entity that's doing good, and we call it throwing the money at bad. We've got to stop that as a commission somehow. And I'm not saying we got to do it overnight, but over the next couple of years, we need to figure that out.
Yeah, I think the cohesion or acting as one group, things come up like sack and whack, and should it be waived or not? I mean, that's when all of us are educated and we understand what costs are. And that's ultimately what could come out of this. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to see one document with everything. And that's, we've already added, you know, to Jesse's documents, you know, our sewer, our stormwater, and so whatever document we, you know, I don't know, we can talk about it at our construction coordination meetings too, just to get one document. So for the commission, we're City of Brainerd, right? We're servicing the same people. And if we could just have one document, that would be helpful to look at the rates. That's something with our next budget cycle. I'll be presenting, you know, our stormwater, our sewer, and just our study rates. We need to get ahead of that. To be proactive, we need our foundation, and utilities, that is our foundation for our city. So we need to get that stable before we can start, in my opinion, growing.
You got another hand up, Mike.
I didn't, if I can, I didn't pull it, I haven't looked through it, but we don't see our force main and lift stations in this 10-year sub, do we? Okay, that kind of goes to, I think, Nick's point, Mike's point, that kind of nice to see everything. Am I not?
Yeah, we can show you that it's a
Right.
it's a different, you know, it's wastewater.
Yeah. Right.
So we do have all of that. And one thing I just want to kind of go to, if I may, Mark, Dolly, Mike, you may have heard me talk about asset management, life cycles, and so on. This is, if you're just looking at a 5-year, we call it capital improvement project, which isn't really a capital improvement, this is operations, and it could be saying, hey, this has a life cycle of 15 years. You're gonna see it again in 15 years. If you look at water, you'll look at the wells, maintenance and all that pulling. You see that when we start working on our budgets and funds, you'll be a part of that. But again, that depreciation cycle, remember, we're supposed to be putting that depreciation back in the bank to then replace that when that asset is defunct again. And it seems like we haven't done that very well. So that's kind of where we're growing this. You'll see it get much larger when it comes to water. You'll see the wastewater lift stations, you'll see them, that list is starting to grow rather large, but there's a lot of assets. So it's kind of a good view of what's needed. When we look at the loss or trying to cover something, remember depreciation is a fictitious number of aged out assets. So if you take that away, then you look at your rates. But if we're not putting that back in, we're gonna be a shortcoming.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Jesse, to you?
I'm just looking for any other further input to bring to council.
I'm just glad to see you guys are all working closely together.
Yeah.
It's been an improvement over the last few years, so thanks for that.
I think we're all on board on having a document that shows everything, so that could be some feedback for the council, Jesse.
I think it'd be neat to have this meeting with city council to sit down in a group and be able to talk about moving from being reactive to proactive as a utility and city. Still don't understand this whole charter thing, but whatever. We'll figure it out.
We're one team, we make it work.
Okay, anything else on that? Thanks for being here to present that. All right, we'll move on to staff reports, city administrator.
Yeah, just I wanted to kind of highlight a couple things. Last night, the city council, I think, had a really productive workshop rather. And staff had been asking, and we made it all work. We got together last night, and it was really a conversation from the council to staff on what council's priorities are. I mean, staff, we are instruments of the council. We're here to execute council's vision. That's kind of where our job starts and stops. We're here to execute the council's vision. So it was very beneficial to hear from council last night. I just want to give you some of the highlights. They basically kind of went around all the council members and they just identified, and Kevin Yeager was up at a piece of paper writing everything down. They were identifying essentially priorities that they would like staff to work on. And they divide them into kind of 3 categories. Some of them will require a significant amount of time, perhaps money, maybe a moderate amount, and maybe some of the lower hanging fruit. So just to give you some ideas, some of the things that they talked about. And I'll just give you the major bullets. There's some minor bullets under some of these, but I'm not going to get into that. But they talked about staffing, they talked about parks. There's a lot of conversation about economic development and housing and infrastructure. I think infrastructure is super, super, super important. It's not the bright, shiny stuff. I understand that, you know, it's hard for elected officials to go to the public and say, elect me, I put in new water and sewer pipes, rather than something bright and shiny. That's just the way it is. But I think we got to take care of our infrastructure, and I think that we've made some strides in getting there today, and I think it's going to continue to get better. We did talk about something that's certainly germane to today's conversation. We talked about the utility distribution and aligning. I was here not a day or so when I found out that our gravity lines and our force mains and lift stations were separate, and that made no sense to me at all. So I think the council talked a little bit about that last night, about maybe bringing those together, so that's a good thing. Talked about public safety, sidewalks. We talked about some of the main corridors through town, and how does that affect our code enforcement. Traditionally, most recently, we've been complaint-based code enforcement. I think the council is interested in exploring options, maybe on some of the corridors, to maybe come up with a hybrid type of code enforcement model. So we'll talk about that. Fire department remodel, we talked a little about the annex, infill and development. And then as some more of the kind of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, we talked about brush clearing, some park maintenance, procedures, documents, preparation. I say all that to say, well, the next step right now for staff is we're gonna take all those ideas and priorities for council. We're going to put those on what I would call a suspense tracker, a task tracker, an action item list, whatever you'd like to use. We're gonna put that into traditional red, yellow, green status updates, percent complete, etc. Status updates. I'll be including that in this packet too for the commission, so you can see all that. So I think that was a huge step in the right direction. I'm very excited about that. Another thing I just want to mention, our audit on the city side kicked off today. I met with the auditors this morning, so they're going to be they're going to be in the building for a couple days, and they'll be gone for about a week or so, then back for a couple more days. And then after, right on the heels of the audit, we're going to be getting into the budget season. Construction season's kicking off also, so that's going on. And then the last thing I just want to talk about is, I've had a couple meetings. You know, when the council asks me questions, I try to be very respectful of, and the charter is, I think, is ambiguous in places in my mind too. But I try to be very respectful of the administrative operational. But when the council asks me operational questions, I feel compelled to dig in a little bit. So I reached out to, I think it was Danny and Mike, and we talked a little bit about the lead line service, that lead line replacement over the next 7 years approximately. So as I try to think about that from the commissioner standpoint, for a council member standpoint, I want to know that the staff has got a pretty robust plan in place, that we're on top of this and we're going to take care of business. So I just asked a few questions. I know that the utilities got this and they're going to run with it and they're going to be successful. And the city will be there to support in whatever capacity that we can. That was kind of some of just the highlights. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Okay, thanks, appreciate it. Council liaison.
Yeah, I support a lot of what Nick said. I'm glad he brought so many items up regarding last night's meeting, and again, I thought it was very productive. You know, we all kind of threw out our ideas, what we want to prioritize, and then we ranked them and put those rankings together, and I guess listed them from kind of top to bottom. And one thing I was really happy to see was the infrastructure did come up pretty high on the list for, you know, where we should show improvements to the CIP we just went over with Jesse, and that's kind of been my big thing since I got elected. And another thing that we did do early in the month was we put a halt on the finance integration. I don't know if you're all aware of that. And then we did say no utilities moving from this commission's responsibility to Public Works. So that was by a 6-to-1 vote, and so was the finance. They passed it, and we also said for 18 months no to a deputy administrator. That was a 6-to-1 vote. Those 3 items passed back on April 7th, which turned into a discussion on the priorities that stemmed from our March 10th retreat. And that's what we had the special meeting about last night. So I think, as Nick said, it was very productive, and I think it just helps everybody all around kind of know where we are at, and that's important, so everybody's on the same page. And I look forward to this meeting coming up too, regarding the EDA public commission here, and then the council regarding the block metrics. That's going to be a interesting discussion. So, and then if you can, I mean, I would encourage you to get that with that generator, if that's possible, to get that on your agenda for that same meeting, depending on when that's called. So, but that's all I got. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything through that. So.
Okay, any questions for Councilman Chezak? All right, thank you, sir. HR Director report.
So I provided a written report. I don't have anything to add unless you have questions.
Okay, so any questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you for that. Finance Manager report.
Nothing too much additional, just want to give you an update of the audit. I know the representation letter is in front of Mike for his signature, so we've seen a draft. I agree with all the adjustments the auditors proposed. They were minor adjustments, some of them doing with the GASB 101, which is compensated absences. That's a new government auditing standard requirement. There's an adjustment there, and then the pension adjustment that's usually at year end. So I also have additional adjustments there, minor adjustments that they consider immaterial. But those adjustments we all agree, so the numbers that are presented in the draft of the audit and what is presented are not the same on the monthly report. That was in your packet by about 20 grand.
Okay, any questions for Danny?
How much money did they audit?
How much money did they audit? $43 million.
You're only off 20 grand. Not too bad.
Uncalled for.
Can you tighten that up?
Was that to the negative or positive?
Actually, it was but it was primarily due to what the GASB 101 change is changing the compensated absences. So previously we had full, like our sick time, that full liability was on the books. Now only like half of it is on the books. So it's all make believe, I call it, because our internal recording is still at the full value. We have to make an adjustment for presentation.
A way for the bean counters to make more money.
That was financial speak 101. You just heard.
I know.
All right, thanks, Danny. Operations?
Nothing to really add to my written report. Here for questions. I will take an opportunity to highlight Tyler Malloy, Brent Yannick, and Nick Calvary for helping me with the safety presentation we did for Anderson Brothers. Once again, it was well received. As I said in my report, there was over 200 people that attended that one. Staff did a great job, and I'm looking for future projects or more of these to do it down the road and kind of push this one off of my boat and into their boat. Let these guys take this and run with it. They're doing a fabulous job with it. So, if anybody would like to ask more questions or see that demonstration trailer, we'd be happy to schedule something with you.
Awesome, thanks.
I just have one question. The back page of your report, when you talked about the service line replacements.
Yes.
You had indicated BPU plans to replace more than 200 service lines each year until the targeted lines have been addressed. Are we talking private service lines?
So yeah, so it's probably a deeper conversation for the commission at some point to give you kind of back up when we're at with service lines. But yes, it will be the utility's responsibility to coordinate and replace those private service lines. Funding will run through the utility for those replacements, so we will be essentially driving those projects. This year's projects, or next year 26 projects, we're targeting up in Northeast, where the BPU has already replaced their side, and so it's private side that will be replaced through this funding. That's encapsulating the best bang for our buck to get one full service line completely lead-free in these requirements. We have not found any lead service lines anywhere in the city to date, but we did find galvanized, and so the word lead's getting thrown around a lot. We don't necessarily have a lead line service line issue, but galvanized is under this mandate required to be replaced. So, is that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess I was thrown that we were doing the work for it.
No, we will not be doing the work.
That's...
We will be contracting and
okay.
Yes, facilitating all the work that needs to be done.
But that we're covering the cost for private service lines to be replaced?
The grant money is, yes.
The grant money. So there is currently money for it, because houses are being sold right now, and this is the only why I bring this up. And sellers are paying for the cost of it. They're negotiating that in their contract. So it would be nice to know, because I know that one of the agents came to me and asked me the questions, that they got one response from City Hall and another response from BPU. So we need to coordinate our response to the owners of these properties as to when they're replacing them, who's paying for it.
So right now, there's only public funding for 2 years for this. So years, this is a 10-year project. We have a 10-year mandate, so we have 10 years to replace these. We have funding for 2. So if funding isn't extended through some of these agencies, federal or state, we're going to have some funding challenges on the BPU Commission side again to overcome these hurdles. But sorry for my intent, but what I was trying to say was we'll be managing either an engineering firm or a contractors, but it will be all going through BPU. So they will see us or a representative of BPU as these projects are happening.
We're not doing the work. Got it. Thank you.
I have a question. The last I heard, which wasn't that long ago, is if there, so, let's go with the alley, my favorite project down there between Joseph and, I was told there is no funding available for the private line from the curb stop to the house. Is that what we're talking about? The funding for that, for the property owners?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct.
So now that's become available?
Not for 2025. We have to get on a project priority list and follow that same.
Okay, so it is available, just not for this year?
Correct. We hope. We have not been approved for that.
Okay.
So there's an approval process we have to go through. We have to be approved and vetted prior to receiving anything.
Is that federal or state?
Federal.
Trent, go out to Washington DC and get in front of them.
Yeah, it's, you know, and just go back to local politics, you know, the state of Minnesota and the federal government aren't really getting along all that well right now. So there's other challenges that we could see potentially coming through this.
Go Bridge that gap.
Okay, on it.
I can work on it a little.
There you go.
All right, any other?
I think if the commission would like more, we can definitely get you, I don't know if they were in the packet or not, but the maps and stuff that we have and what we're targeting for next year and some of those projects, we have it on our PPL list. It is going out for funding. We haven't received that yet, but if there's any questions or anything the commission would like, just reach out.
I'd love to see that map.
Sure.
I like pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Like the ones you handed out.
I got him.
He handed out pictures at the last.
Oh.
I went to give Jeff one, he's like, it probably ain't gonna do me any good.
Nice.
All right, anything else for Trent? Thank you, Trent.
Thank you.
All right, Charlie.
I got maps.
You got maps?
You got pictures?
I got pictures, so I'm gonna hand them out real quick. I really don't have anything. It's been a really quiet month. I love it.
Yay.
I just wanna remind you that we're gonna be going, and adding, Baxter here potentially in May.
Does this take one and pass them down?
No, them are the projects that we applied for the PPL that you're questioning right now for 210. You'll see it broken out into different projects.
So I need to share these with everybody?
Yeah, that was,
What are you trying to do?
What's that?
What are you trying to do?
He had the lead service things in his folder and just handed them.
He's got
You asked for it, and so Trent and I printed them off, so I had them, so.
Can you
them are the
email these
projects
to
we
me?
applied for.
That's great. That's all right.
There's
It's
a
got
lot.
color, it's got stars. It looks like somebody used a
Yeah,
crayon.
that came from
You know.
mapping here.
It's my crap.
Huh?
It's my crap.
How many you got in your box?
I don't.
But this is the same identifying markers, I think, is it the Minnesota?
This is the PPL
Yes,
list submittal.
so it is
everything
online,
that-
I would assume we have it on our website,
I don't,
that map?
we could definitely put it on there.
Would you, because I know I send it out, and we put it, I believe we put it on our website for that reason, just so people could.
Yeah.
look
So
at
we're
it.
applying for funding right now, so if we don't get that funding, we might have a different looking map.
Right.
Right.
So this is why we haven't advertised it too much yet, so we actually
We'll
have
put an
funding.
asterisk
But
on
if
it.
you want it on the website, we'd be happy to put it up there.
Informing the consumer.
It's just like that fire hydrant at the end of the road that I called about. Two of my neighbors asked me about that, and knowing the data to say, hey, it's just yearly maintenance, it quieted it right down.
Sure, yep. So this is the state of Minnesota site where it identifies all service lines, that need to be replaced.
None in Baxter. Just kidding.
Charlie, what are we supposed to do with this?
No, he was questioning it, so I thought I'd bring him the maps.
All right, Charlie, anything to add though outside?
I don't, and remember that we're gonna be providing water to Baxter potentially as they do their work. Everything is going well, hopefully. We did start line applying. We actually went last week. We've got Little Store gone already. So yeah, any questions? If there's any water issues with any residents that, you know, whether it be council members or whoever, please direct them to me so I can have them concerned, so I can look at the water quality, and that's about it. If you don't have any questions.
I got a question. With road restrictions, do we haul biosolids to the farm fields during that time?
100%, but we gotta watch our loads and we gotta stay off of the road restricted limits, so.
Well, when you're going on, county roads for farm, you dump it in a field, how do you avoid that?
It depends on the classification of the road.
A lot of our county roads are okay to drive on.
9-ton, yeah, so.
A lot of them are 9-ton roads, so you can,
Yep.
you can actually drive on a lot of them. You just gotta watch the signs and the.
Alright.
Early spring, we gotta watch that, exactly, so we look at the restrictions of the roads.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from Charlie? Charlie, thank you. All right, commissioner member reports. Mike?
I appreciate the meeting today. I'm getting more comfortable. And one of the things that I thought about in some of the discussions today was, we spent a lot of money after we did the private-public partnership with the city on the bike trail, redoing the rest of our parking lots and sidewalks around our civic center. And it didn't dawn on me, but it actually helped me raise my lease rates. When people come into NPC and they see all the new parking lots and they see the flowers and the plantings and the trail, it gives them the sense of comfort. And I think that I'm hearing part of that with the city, Nick, and other things, like right now, and when we come into our city and a lot of the thoroughways, there's some rough roads. I've been driving my little scooter now that I live in town around, and I joke with my wife that I'm a commissioner, so I'm looking at my assets, right? So we're cruising around looking at lift stations and just, I'm learning the streets because I haven't really paid a lot of attention. And, you know, the more we can get ahead of that, the look, the blacktop, the sidewalks, the feel, the more it will raise everything, most importantly, our per capita income. You know, I'm studying another city right now that's very similar to Brainerd Baxter combined, and I'm dumbfounded at the per capita income there. And you know, that needs to be addressed. And maybe this isn't the right place to address that, but I think, you know, we're setting utility rates and we're doing things that affect all that. So it's just something that's intrigued me the last couple of months in studying this other city, and I appreciate the group effort between commission and city council, because, you know, we both serve each other. We serve the citizens, we serve their water, we handle their waste treatment, we handle their power. You guys handle parks and recs, roads. I think we need to work better as a team. And I think we are. I think it is getting better rapidly. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Well said.
I don't
Okay, Mark? All right, I just have, well, thanks everybody for their work. I agree, it was a great meeting, Mike. And one thing I was just gonna ask, just for the Joint Wastewater Management Board, as we move along here and you guys are beginning to do some work for us, would you be able to provide just a summary email, you know, with the schedule that we're working towards with our project, and just that way the city of Baxter and city of Brainerd folks and the commission just have an update on status. And then the other thing is, just if we do need to have a meeting, don't be afraid to reach out to us just to say, you know what, this is an appropriate time for us to get together, here's what it is, or at least just a summary email. So I would appreciate that, and I think it's just such a big price tag here, and looking at both city administrators here and with us as a commission. It'd just be great to, and you probably provide that already to who you're working with internally here, but I think just getting that out to the Joint Wastewater Management Board would be great.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of follow-up to come.
Yeah.
A lot of times I structure with monthly emails and updates on action items, summarize what was done.
Yep.
BPU's aware that I've done that on other projects already,
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, and we had proposed up to, you know, like 4 presentations, you know, for the different government entities to make sure everybody's on board. This is a big, you know, feat we gotta go tackle here, and, you know, to get out to 2055, that's a lot of time that we have to plan for.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Thanks in advance for doing that. So.
When we send out invitations or whatever for that joint meeting, EDA, Commission, Council, are you inviting Kayla, the attorney?
I can.
Well, she's the one who's gonna be drafting that contract, if there is one.
That would be good.
So,
Yep. I think Langle should be there.
And this
too.
will be at council chambers so that she can attend Zoom or however.
We'll make it work.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So
Make a
moved.
motion, oh, second?
Second?